Okay, so this is the multiplication property of equality. Hold on, just watch this one. Do not take notes on this one. I just want to show you how the multiplication property of equality works. Okay, the division property is you took what you had and you put it into groups. The multiplication property is we're going to take what we have and make more groups. So let's say I wanted 3 of these. Well, then that would mean I would multiply this by 3, and then I would end up with 3 here, these 2 here, and on this side I would end up with 3 like this, and then, okay? What's nice about this one is that you see how you have these x's here? When you need more x's on one side, you can use multiplication. And multiplication doesn't get my x's over to the other side, okay? So what that would look like, again, don't bother writing this down, is I'm multiplying by 3 on this side. Okay, I did say it does not mean multiplication. Okay, parentheses do not mean multiplication. Okay, and I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. Okay, and I'm going to multiply that side by 3 also. And once we do that, I'm going to be left with 6x on one side and 9 on the other side. Now, why would you make your life more complicated? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you can do this, but I wouldn't do this in this instance. Okay? But let me show you where it is going to make a difference. Okay? We've just complicated it more. And at this point, and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And you know what? This is what you do. When you've made it more complicated, this is what you do. Let me try something else. Okay? All right. So let's move on to the next slide, and you'll see what it's going to look like when it's helpful. But before we do that, we're going to look at some fractions. Okay? So let's say I have 1/4 of something, let's say like 1/4 of a cake. So here's my cake, and I have 1/4. Yes? Well, if I multiply that 1/4 by 4, that means I'm going to have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. And then when I grab those 1/4 and put them together, what happens? I have 4/4, which is the same as 1. So when I multiply 4 times 1/4, I get a 1. Now let's check this one out. Let's say I have 1/5 of a cake. So I have 1/5. If I have 1/5 and I multiply it by 5, then I'm going to have a 1/5, a 1/5, plus 1/5, plus 1/5, plus 1/5, right, 5 times, right? And then I bring these in here, and what's going to happen? Can somebody tell me? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to get 1 whole, because 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, they're going to come together and give me 1 whole. So 5 times 1/5 gives me 1 whole. Okay? So how is that helpful? So we're going to take what we did here earlier and this information and see how those work together. Okay, we're gonna look at this one. So this right here, you can tell is x equals 5. But what if we didn't have all of the x? What if we only had half an x? Yeah? So that would be 1/2 x equals 5. So if I have half an x, but remember I want to solve this, I need one whole rectangle. That means I need one whole x. If I want one whole x, then what I need here are 2 of these. I need a half plus another half. But I don't want to add half an x here and then add half an x here, because that's going to make a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the multiplication property of equality. And I'm going to I'm going to multiply by 2. So let me see if this thing lets me multiply. Okay. So I have 1 here and 1 group here. So I'm going to multiply these groups by 2. So I'm going to have 2 groups. Okay. So then when I multiply, what does that look like? That's what it looks like, guys. So I multiplied it by 2. So now I have 2 of these. And I have 2 of these. And algebraically, right, we have that 1/2 x equals 5. And then we multiply by 2 here and by 2 here. Okay, remember I told you guys about that groups do not mean multiply? Okay, if you had a plus sign here in the middle, it would just be 5 plus 2, even with the parentheses, so it doesn't mean multiply. What it means is usually when we don't have something, like when you have like x, y next to each other, that means x times y, because there's nothing in between, so it's understood that that's multiply. It's the same kind of thing here. There's nothing between this group and the 2, so you can think of that as multiply. Or that you have 2 5s, or you have 2 of these. Okay, so then what is that gonna look like now? Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next part. Give me a sec. And that's what it looks like. You bring the 2 halves together, and well, nothing happens with these. You can bring them together, but you bring the 2 halves together and you just have 1x, and you can see that over here. And then over here you have 10, and this one's nice. Notice there's nothing else here. So this one is actually solved. This is actually the solution after you simplified.